Oh, gosh. Cold. All that is, we're in a basement, I have a space heater. Everything gets cold all the time. Bones start to ache. I go from my mid-20s to my mid-50s. Constant. Oh. Ah! Ugh. All right. Enough dilly-dallying, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Primetime Pregame Show. It is week 17 in the National Football League. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. You know what? I should probably have a Christmas hat on. I still don't. Sorry. Not very festive. I mean, I'm Rudolph, except I'm brown, don't have antlers, and I don't have a red button nose. But I could use this little bottle cap. Rudolph. See? I have a red button nose. It also says R for Rudolph, clearly. Rudolph had drip. People don't realize that. Rudolph's not only the best and goated reindeer, but he also had drip. Regardless, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. Hope you all got to spend some wonderful time with the family. Hope you guys are still having time with the family for New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, all that pizzazz for the close out the new year. Today, you know what it is. I got to recap what happened on Christmas. I got to recap what happened on Saturday. And I got to get into what's going on today and tomorrow night. And joining me today, the Box of Shame, is none other than Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, who I am very annoyed with. I'm annoyed with the entire Packers defense, really. As a Steelers fan, I'm very annoyed that we can never seem to get any help from teams that are supposed to be good. We were able to get help from New England, which I kind of like, but still wanted New England to lose. And then, of course, Green Bay was just absolutely no help in what they were doing. At home, by the way. At home, need I mention, against a 32-year-old Derrick Henry and a backup in Tyler Huntley. Not very good, not very impressive, very, very upsetting. I'm going to get into that game, I guess, in terms of just talking about what the big headline was from there. Starting with Derrick Henry having the best game of the year, when I think a lot of people who drafted him may not even be in Fantasy Football Championships. I know I certainly wasn't. I still started him anyway in the third place game, so, still got my 45 points, going to pretty much clinch third. The issue I have with what Green Bay did is tonight was officially, Green Bay can't win this. That's to me what last night said. You let Derrick Henry do what he did. You let Tyler Snoop Huntley go into your building and beat you. You got no shot if you're going to have that happen when you play Chicago, which I presume they're going to play, because I believe it's right now Chicago is the 2 seed. Could change, subject to change who they play. But if you're allowing, say, Derrick Henry to do that, I'm worried what a duo of like DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monunga is going to do to you. I would be concerned about what a healthy Eagles offensive line and Saquon may be able to do to you. Like, you're not in a position right now. And we don't even know what the status of Jordan Love is. Is it going to be Jordan Love? Going to be Malik Willis? Like, is it going to be Clayton Tune? Like, I don't know. And it's going to matter. Your starting quarterback in the playoffs kind of matters. I will give Green Bay credit on one front. Malik Willis looks kind of nice. And I was thinking about this. I know a lot of people are reacting to Malik Willis is going to have a starting job, going to have a starting opportunity. I think he will. I think it just depends where. I like two specific places. I like Arizona if they don't want to keep Jacoby Brissett, and I think they're eventually going to move off Kyler Murray. I would personally, at least this offseason. And then the other team I was thinking was Miami. I think Malik Willis in Miami could really work. Got a decent arm. He can run much better than Tua can. And, like, in comparison, like, I was looking at it, Kyler Murray is like 5'11", 207. Malik Willis is 6 foot, 225. You have a little bit of a bigger quarterback. Not, like, significant, but I think 20 pounds and a little inch height is significant, especially on a guy that looks like he's got significant mobility. Maybe not the same as Kyler's, But Kyler ain't been winning the games when he was healthy. I think at the very least you get Malik Willis cheaper as like a bridge guy, and then for 2026, see if you like him. If you don't, then you can go into 2027 draft and actually could be a much better brand of quarterbacks. Because outside of like Mendoza and maybe the kid out of Oregon Moore, just not a very strong QB class this year, in my opinion. It's not incredible. Like, there's maybe one or two guys you really like. It's very similar to last year's. Listen, I give credit to Malik Willis, but I do not give credit to Matt LaFleur. This idea that this defense, and especially because, again, this defense was such a big part of who this team was all year. It was really good running game and good defense. Their defense gave up 41 points to a backup quarterback, and their starting running back, Josh Jacobs, got 3 total rushing yards. So, not good. Not good, especially against a Ravens team that's been wildly inconsistent this year. This was not a good performance to be delivering 2 weeks before you're in the playoffs. Just not okay. Not okay for the Green Bay Packers at all. That was a disgusting show. As a Steeler fan, I am wildly unhappy and disappointed in the Green Bay Packers. Why couldn't they have just lost to us when we played them Sunday night instead of losing here against Baltimore? Would have been way better. Just saying. Could have lost both for all I care. But, my goodness, this Green Bay team, especially a team after the Micah Parsons trade coming in with Super Bowl expectations, now there's a real chance they don't even win a playoff game. I think obviously injuries have taken their toll. Injuries are a part of the game. But you needed to be, there's no way you could be giving up 40 points to Tyler Snoop Huntley. I can't justify it. Can't justify it. This team's looking one and done in the playoffs. Got no excuses. That's why Matt LaFleur's in the box champ. You can argue it should be like the defense coordinator, but Matt's just easier. Matt's just easier. I've always had this weird thing with LaFleur where he's very clearly like one of the better offensive coaches in the league, but he always struggles to create a consistent identity, whether it's with Jordan Love, whether he had Aaron Rodgers in the building, whether it's with Malik Willis on the field. It's just very hard to fully trust the Packers. Like, you know they're going to be good, but to expect them to be Super Bowl contenders under Matt LaFleur, he's like the AFC's, he's like the NFC's Sean McDermott almost. Where it's like, you think, yeah, the team will be good and all that, but you're not fully convinced. Also, I just realized that he's backwards. The flipped, you could A logo is not a G anymore. It's like almost like an Incredibles logo when it's flipped. Like with the way the Incredibles logo kind of looks. I don't know. Food for thought. I just noticed that and I was like, that matters. That logo's not symmetrical. Whoops. Whoopsie. Anyway. Yeah, humiliating loss for the Packers. Of course, the Baltimore Ravens, giving them their due credit. They stay alive in playoff contention. But of course, that'll all depend on if the Cleveland Browns are able to upset the Pittsburgh Steelers to force a Ravens-Steelers Week 18 for the division game. Which, if I know anything about the Pittsburgh Steelers, in their history, is going to tell me they're going to lose to Cleveland because that's how this team is. The team finds a way, right when it looks like the division's right there, yeah, you know what, let's get rid of it. We don't road game against a bad team. Yeah, we're probably going to lose. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's been Mike Tomlin's MO for 15 years now. It's just who he is. Who knows? Maybe this is the season that it changes. But I doubt it. Moving along from this game to the other Saturday game that we played yesterday, the Houston Texans, with a impressive road win against the LA Chargers. They brutalized that offensive line. What were we looking at for sacks in that game? Because it was at one point I checked in and I was like, wow, that's 5 sacks. And we saw this same story play out in Houston in the playoffs last year. So it wasn't like unpredictable that this could have happened. But yeah, it happened. And my God, it was far from pretty. Yes, he got 5 sacks for 35 yards. Yeah. Listen, I don't blame on Justin Herbert entirely. I think he actually played fairly well for what he did. Like, that pickoff around Gadsden saying, yeah, you'd like him to come down with that. So that's not really on Justin Herbert. They very much had a chance to win this game. Got to give credit to Houston, though. They were opportunistic defensively. They've been opportunistic all year long. Their defense is the best in the league. I mean, legitimately, there's a case to be made. It's like the most statistically dominant since 2009. I think Rex Ryan said that. I don't know how true that is. I do a full stat breakdown and check. But listen, we've seen defensive runs before. I mean, we saw Von Miller's Denver Broncos, the no-fly zone, just go through Big Ben, Tom Brady, and MVP Cam Newton all the way to a Super Bowl. So, and you only need a little bit of offense. Like, really, these great defenses, you only need C.J. Stroud to make maybe like 3 or 4 big-time, like 3 or 4 critical throws, and then just control the game on the ground, and it's very much a winnable game. That's the thing. I think if the Texans can put up, like, if Texans put up 20 points most of the time, it feels like they're going to win. That's how good this defense is. So, I think they're very scary. I think of anybody, like, where I think Green Bay is a team that all of the division winners are like, yeah, I'd love to play Green Bay in round 1. Whereas, like, if you're a division winner in the AFC and you see Houston, that's like the last team you want to see, to be honest. Like, if I'm England, if I'm Jacksonville, if I'm Denver, I'm like, I do not want to see the Houston Texans in round 1. I don't want to see them. They've had back-to-back years with playoff wins. And again, if their defense is on one, offense needs like 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, which is so reasonable to ask for. Or even just 3 touchdowns, which is maybe even it feels easier, honestly, than getting 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, because you need to score on 4 different drives as opposed to 3, but you touchdowns. If they get in that 20 to 25 point range, even more than that, obviously, probably is more likely to win. Houston is just that good defensively. Nico Ryans has done a fantastic job. Probably one of the better, if not the best, defensive coach right now in national football. I would think. I mean, obviously, he's got some high-end players like Derek Stingley, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, but it feels like it's no con. It feels like the majority of coaches are competing for second defensive head coach. As for the Chargers, this is the scary thing, man. They're gonna have to go into these playoffs with literally, I think, the worst offensive line I've ever seen. The PFF listing of like, he's like 34 out of 35, 21 out of 36, 36 out of 36, 34 out of 35, like 36 or 35 out of 36. Like, it is such a bad offensive line. It's miserable for them, and it sucks because it's like, oh, you'd like Justin Herbert to have a little bit of protection, but yet he's still finding a way to win them games. Still have 11 wins. It's still very impressive, but my gosh, to think that there was the darn shame. It really is. It really is a shame when you think about where the Chargers stand and what they could be if they were fully healthy, but they just never are. They're always a wild card team, and they get into a mismatch like last year against Houston, and they might get into another mismatch this year depending on who they face. So obviously those playoffs are going to switch up. Let me see how much it switches, because I don't know if we would need Buffalo to see, because right now Houston would be ahead of them in the playoff picture. So then the Chargers would probably get knocked back to like a 7 seed, right? Yeah, so 7. They would face the Patriots, which I don't think they would like that either. I mean, nobody really, I think all these pass rushers are really good. Meanwhile, Houston get to play Jacksonville. So if I'm Jacksonville, I'm thinking, well, crap, I don't want to play the Texans. I just don't. Home or away, I wouldn't want to play Houston. And again, Houston still has a shot at the AFC South title, too. So Jacksonville's got to close out strong if they want to have a shot at making Houston doesn't take it from them. But we would see where that goes. I mean, then the Bills would get Pittsburgh, which is honestly Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh just needs to win this game. Cleveland. I'm looking at it right now, and it is agonizing to look at. So agonizing. Just freaking don't lose this game, please. Got me on the edge of my seat right now. Let's go to the Christmas games real quick. Not a whole lot of huge headlines there. Denver continues to barely beat teams. That's just kind of been Denver all year. This just adds to that fraudulent title, I feel. I did see a Chris Aludakun post-game presser where he sounds exactly like Patrick Mahomes, which I thought was just kind of funny. We've got the Commanders and the Cowboys. Kind of expected the Commanders to lose that game just because Dallas actually has a starting quarterback and don't. I will say, for the Cowboys and Commanders, I want to give a lot of credit to Brian Schottenheimer. I kind of felt like there was a bad coaching hire. I still don't think it's great. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a great coaching hire still. But I am more impressed what he did in year one because I was not expecting them mediocre. And they were better than I thought. And there's chances that they're better next year. Like, there are real chances that Schottenheimer continues well and improve this team and make some good moves. But ultimately, I think the main issue is, it's not like I guess the main issue is you really just need to improve the defense. And then I also saw something that Logan Wilson was benched by Dallas, got 0 snaps in that game against Commanders. So that's 2 teams benched by. I remember when that guy was like a ball hawking middle linebacker in Cincinnati, and now is just not good enough to start for 2 of the worst defenses in the league. Life comes at you fast. And then there's, of course, the biggest headline, I think, which was Brian Flores absolutely like marking his territory. You know how a dog will come to a fire hydrant and mark its territory? That fire hydrant of the Detroit Lions, if the Detroit Lions were a fire hydrant and the dog was marking its territory, that fire hydrant's not red and yellow anymore. That is like a completely different color. That's how much Brian Flores said, "Oh, you're getting owned, kids." Like, 6 turnovers. And again, like, it was Max Brosmer. It wasn't like it was even JJ McCarthy. It was Brosmer getting his first win, so congrats, hats off to him. I know he wasn't like huge in the win, but we're talking about the dominance of Brian Flores. I think he's also a guy that will eventually get another shot at a head coaching job either here or potentially in college. I think when you look at what the Vikings were, I mean, when you think about the Vikings, they really haven't had a great year yet. They're sitting at 8-8, and obviously they're eliminated from any sort of playoff contention, but it just makes you wonder how different this season could have been if they stuck with Sam Darnold, or how different it could have been if they had gotten a quarterback, or even Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was in that locker room at a time, right? To let both those guys go and know the seasons that they ultimately had, that you could be in a much better position. And it makes you really think, do the Vikings really give JJ McCarthy another year? Like, I know it's just one season, but he's been hurt multiple times, and when he's been inconsistent at best and absolutely awful at worst. So it's just not. Is it really honestly worth it to keep him around going into next season? Would they not go for? Why not? If I'm Minnesota, I'd make a case for Malik Willis. Like, I'd make that case too. I think he could start there as well. So it's a very fascinating situation in Minnesota because they have to do something. If they don't do something, they're sitting on an incredible defensive coordinator. They're sitting on incredible defensive talent. They need to be in a better position. They're in such a good position to be able to get something done. So that's a major concern for me about going next season for the Vikings. But obviously, the big headline is Detroit missing the playoffs after losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Losing 2 coordinators in one season is just not something that every team bounce back from. And the interesting thing, I'll say this, Detroit's ability, and I guess really Super Bowl window, talk about what is their potential to win the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell, after that 49ers loss back in 2023 season, but that playoff year, they lost to Detroit, or no, they lost to San Francisco in the NFC Championship. Dan Campbell comes out and says this may have basically, this is paraphrasing, says this could have been our last chance to really win the title. And it gets you thinking, generally, and this is kind of something I thought about, but I think there's a rule when it comes to Super Bowl windows. What you think the window is, it's more than likely half of that. So I thought coming in, Lions could have a 5-year chance to win a Super Bowl. If you're looking at it now, it may have been 2 years, 3 years, 2.5, somewhere in that range, as opposed to maybe a 5 or 6 year time. And to be fair, I think as crushing as it is for Detroit this year, to have let this season go by the wayside when you consider how much talent they have on the offensive side of the ball. And frankly, they've got some good players on defense too. The one thing I have to say about this team is that I think next year is potentially their last chance to really make an impact. Because next year, let's say Detroit, in week 18 of the season, they will play Chicago. Let's say they lose that game, because Chicago's probably still going to be trying, maybe for like a 1 seed that game. They might still have a chance at a 1 seed, right? If they lose that game to Chicago, they will guaranteed be last place in the division. They will get a last place schedule next. They will hopefully be fully healthy on the defensive side of the ball. I think they need to be aggressive. I think they need to go out and consider some trades. Like, remember, a lot of people are saying maybe they go after Myles Garrett, seeing that he's available. I think, first of all, I think every single team should be calling Cleveland trying to see if Myles Garrett's available. That's what I would do. Because Cleveland, I don't think it matters what they do in the draft. I don't think they're ready for draft contention, especially considering there's a chance to fire Stefanski. I think right now, if you are if you're a team like Detroit who you know is going to have a last place schedule, or at the very least most likely to have a last place schedule this coming season, and you've got maybe 1-2 years left tops, you've got to make a move. You have to be aggressive. You have to go out and either bolster the interior of that offensive line that had lost Frank Ragnow to retirement, or you go out and bolster your defense with a significant pass rusher. Because right now, you lose 2 coordinators that are were as talented as they were. Like, listen, Aaron Glenn I thought was a little overrated, but we see the impact of Ben Johnson in just 1 season in Chicago. That's not easily replaceable. There's no guarantee you'll be able to replace that even this offseason. It's significant. It's very significant. I would continue to look into it and say, we need to upgrade to have any chance in this. Because you've been swept by the Packers. You've been swept by the Vikings, who actually, not even jokingly, had worse quarterback play than you. In both of those games, they had the worst quarterback and still won. And then Chicago, who's got a good chance of beating you the last week of the regular season. If I'm Detroit, I'm getting aggressive this offseason. Because I got 1 or 2 seasons left with this roster. That's what I'm seeing. I think you're going to start losing players. I think you're not going to have the ability to pay everyone. I think you need to go out and make some aggressive decisions. Have any chance. Still have Amon-Ra. Still have Jahmyr Gibbs. Still have Jared Goff. Penei Sewell on the offensive line. Sam Laporte at tight end. You hope he's back and fully healthy. The decisions that Detroit's going to have to start looking into. They just have to. They don't have a choice. They got to do it now. They got to do it this offseason, or it's never going to happen. I think Dan Campbell will. I think Dan Campbell will be somewhat aggressive, but they got decisions to make. This was a lot of people in Detroit will agree. People outside of Detroit will agree. This felt like a little bit of a waste of a season. It did. Feels like it. Got to do something about it. But enough of the games we've already seen. Enough of that. We got to talk about the games this week. The big headliners, I think, looking at it, some of these games are kind of whatever. Cardinals-Bengals, not a huge one. Like, for example, Cardinals-Bengals not going to be big. Let's talk about the ones that have the major playoff implications. Steelers-Browns. Let's start there. Pittsburgh. There's a lot on this game for both teams. I think for number one, obviously, Pittsburgh, you win, and you're in. You win, you clinch the AFC North, you don't even need to worry about Week 18. Win this game, you are in the playoffs. As for the Cleveland Browns. Now, here's where you are at. You are Cleveland. You have a couple things. Number one, you obviously want to, try to knock Pittsburgh out of the playoffs. Right? Get them out, force them to play Week 18, whatever. That's what you want. You want that motivation. Secondly, there's player incentive. Myles Garrett, the half sack away is, I think, 1 full sack of breaking the record. Yeah, it's a full sack. They're able to, break the record. And the other thing that's important to note about that, he didn't get a sack in the last game. Broderick Jones, who was unfortunately been placed on IR since, locked him down. He had a very good day. So the understanding is Myles Garrett's probably going to be very frustrated that he didn't get a sack. And I think this is finally the game where he does get it. I know a lot of people are talking about this as one of, if not the best defensive player of the year, season. I got to say, and this is obviously biased as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, the glaze Myles Garrett is getting, not to say it's not warranted, because he's a great defensive player, but I've seen this team, and even last week against Buffalo, I don't know if anybody saw that sack. I don't know if y'all saw that sack that they got. They got, Josh Allen spinning around like a goofball back all the way to the goal line and gets sacked, gets dropped. For whatever reason, they stat corrected this and gave Myles Garrett half a sack, despite the fact that he doesn't touch him. And I was like, fine, whatever. Sure. Do whatever you want. Make it easier. And you know what's funny? As crazy as that is, do you know the other half sack didn't even go to the guy who touched Josh Allen down, which was Mason Graham. It went to Wright. I have to remember his first name. I want to say it was Austin Wright? Yeah, Ben Alex Wright. Went to Alex Wright. Instead of Mason Graham who touched him down. That's the part that I don't get. What is stat corrections doing? Right? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I remember TJ technically broke the record. TJ broke the record when he was in Baltimore. When they went to Baltimore week 18. He sacks Tyler Huntley, strip sacks him. But he's like, Tyler Huntley dropped the ball and then picked it back up. Therefore, it's a running play. So then it's not a sack. Dude, Tyler Huntley was throwing that ball. That's a sack. I don't know what to tell you, but it's always been a weird discrepancy with a little bit of bias towards Myles Garrett. I would still, and again, controversial, you can say call me biased, I don't care. I would take TJ Watt in his prime over Myles Garrett. I've seen TJ have a larger impact on so many more games than Myles has. And you're going to say, it's an impact of Cleveland being bad, but listen, if you got him at all in MVP discussions, nobody wanted TJ in MVP talks when he's having his 20 sack season. Nobody. But the fact that Pittsburgh single-handedly wouldn't have made the playoffs without him. Whereas Myles, yeah, he's having a great season, but it's not like it matters whether he's on Cleveland or not. This team is no better or worse with him on there. They're not much worse if he's not there. They only have 3 wins. They can't possibly be that good when he's on there. You know what I mean? And of course, now me saying it, the Steelers are probably going to find a way to lose, and Myles is going to have 5 sacks in this game because that's just my luck. But I will say, listen, it is what it is. It is what it is. For Pittsburgh, though, I'll say going in, I'm terrified. I just am, because this is Mike Tomlin. This is of any game that is a Tomlin trap game. This is textbook trap game. It's a bad team. It is a rookie quarterback. It is on the road. It is to win the division. Everything about this game tells me, yeah, Mike's gonna. It's against a bad quarterback on the road against a bad team to clinch a playoff spot. And of course, if they don't, then it's set up to play Baltimore week 18. Everything about this game, I would not doubt it if I'm watching this game and I see some Vegas style calls. I can almost guarantee that there's gonna be a penalty that I'm not gonna like. And it's going to be that was a huge penalty, and the Steelers could have gotten points there. It's going to be that kind of a game. And plus, additionally, and I'll be honest, the DK Metcalf 2-game suspension also pisses me off. Honestly, I'm not saying he shouldn't have gotten some sort of punishment, but really, you're not going to play him for the Week 18 AFC North bout? You want Lamar Jackson to play out that badly? Okay, that's fine. Just checking. Like I said, I hope they're able to get it done this week. With the way James Cook was running the ball for the Bills, I hope Warren and Kenneth Gainwell can kind of do that same thing. We'll see if the Browns make adjustments. I imagine they will in some capacity. But them not having Quinshon Judkins doesn't help either. It's going to be a lot of Dylan Sampson, who, of course, we're going to make look like a god. But that's neither here nor there. I don't have an honest answer of who's going to win this game, because it feels like such a Tomlin trap game, but I honestly don't want to pick Cleveland. I can't do it. I can't pick them. Sorry. But I won't. I'll just won't pick the game. I won't say who I think is going to win, but I will say the game has me very. The other big playoff implications in the game, there are a few smaller ones, but I will get into probably the largest ones first. Of course, the Buccaneers going to Miami to play the Dolphins, and the Carolina Panthers hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Those are very big for the NFC South, just because if Panthers defeat the Seattle Seahawks and the Buccaneers lose to the Miami Dolphins, then it's possible for the Bucs to win the division. Therefore, Carolina is the winners of the NFC South. That's really it. At this point, I'm gonna be honest. If I had to pick in their height of the season, I'd probably pick Tampa. But I think Carolina's playing better right now. I think they have a more reason to win the division. Seeing Bryce Young in his first playoff trip could be interesting. I really think whoever he's gonna get in the first round is just gonna be very difficult and kind of outmatched. But hey, we've seen teams with losing records in the playoffs win playoff games, so I'm not particularly concerned about any of that. I don't think that's something. I don't think Carolina has no chance. I just think it's unlikely because we've seen it. Carolina, that 7-8-1 team, that Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals, of course, Cardinals didn't have Palmer, and then the Seattle Seahawks that came in at 7-9 West, beat Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, and the most recent one actually lost. It was the Washington football team playing against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks, but Taylor Heineke put up quite a fight in that one as well. So I just don't think you can write off Carolina. That being said, I think they should. I think they'll lose to Seattle. I think they will lose to the Seahawks. But then, I think they'll go into Tampa. There's a very real chance they win. If Tampa finds a way to win, I got to be honest, I almost kind of doubt it because this team has been in spiral mode. There's a very real chance they lose to Miami. Of course, Miami is starting Quinn Ewers. It's kind of, you would imagine unlikely. But I just don't know, especially with Mike McDaniel coaching for his job. There's very real chances there. I'll say this. The only reason I think Tampa could potentially have a shot is at winning the division just because Tampa has a little bit more experience in that regard. They haven't played well recently, even with Mike Evans coming back. They lost to Atlanta. They let Kyle Pitts go off, right? So it is, and then of course they couldn't win in Carolina. So what is the status? Can Tampa turn it around? Technically, yes. But again, there's no real way of knowing for sure. Let me see. Weird. But I believe they have Carolina, even with, if Tampa wins against Miami, their winning percent, they're, more likely to win. They're more than likely to make the playoffs than if Carolina wins. Which doesn't really make sense to me, but for whatever reason, they like the Bucs. And I don't really know why. I personally would obviously like Carolina more so, but look, man, it is what it is. But this is definitely bizarre. I'll say that much. It's definitely a bizarre situation. I think Carolina would be more entertaining because we get to see some. We've seen Tampa in the playoffs the last few years. It would be nice to see a little bit of a switch up in the NFC South. It would kind of also force the rest of the NFC South to kind of, at least Tampa, to kind of change what they've been doing as opposed to thing because they've been kind of in the same spot for the last. The other small things that impact the playoffs: Patriots, Jets, and Bills. So Patriots, Jets actually does impact the playoffs. Believe it or not, if the Jets somehow, by some miracle on God's green earth, are able to beat the New England Patriots, then it opens the door for the Buffalo Bills to come in and try to take first place in the division. Of course, that would require the Bills go and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what would need to happen. I believe it is Eagles at Bills. So it'll be the Eagles going into Buffalo. The Bills would need to defeat Philadelphia Eagles. Very possible. Very much possible. But the other one that's really improbable is, I don't think the Jets are honestly going to beat. That's kind of the issue, right? Is that going to happen? The answer kind of feels like, right? And I also think, maybe I'm incorrect on this, but I believe it's also possible that Miami Dolphins would need to beat them as well. I'm just to guarantee it. I'm not sure that's happening either. But let's see any other. Of course, that big one being Pittsburgh can win Cleveland. The AFC North is clinched. And Denver would be interesting. They can actually clinch the AFC West and the division title if the following things happen. Number one, Denver wins, which they did beat. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Number two, if the Chargers lose, which did happen, if the Patriots lose, and if the Bills and the Jags all lose. They would need a lot to go their way, but they could clinch the AFC West and the 1 seed as of this. As for the New England Patriots, they can clinch the AFC East division, but they would need a win and they would need a Buffalo loss. Of course, the Steelers, we know, clinch the North if they win, but over the Baltimore Ravens. Texans did get a playoff berth with their win over the Chargers. So that was, which essentially has eliminated Indianapolis from the playoffs, which is, I must say, a little upsetting if you are, of course, the fan of the Indianapolis Colts. I know when you really think about it, that's got to be frustrating for a team that really hasn't seen significant success, honestly, since Andrew Luck left and then had one. And even with Andrew Luck, it was a trying time just to have them have some hope, get to like 8-1, 8-2, and then be in this position where, we're bad again. Like, to be in that spot really does sting, to see Daniel Jones go down, to see Jonathan Taylor in the running game kind of fall off, see the defense be banged up and just unable to stop anybody. It has been a thorough and complete collapse for the Colts. I don't know if that means that they would consider moving Shane Steichen. I don't personally, just because that's so much to go wrong in a year. Your defense imploding, quarterback tearing his Achilles. I mean, to be honest, if you had to be honest, I think also the expectation coming in is that the Colts are supposed to be bad. Daniel Jones, really, that's your starter. He's actually played like the most efficient season. I think personally, the best season he's ever had. I mean, it's just a frustrating and a painful experience to have. So that is a rough one. That is a rough one, undoubtedly. Hopefully they can come back next year and be better. But I gotta be honest, it's tough to catch lightning in a bottle like that again. It really is, and to hold it, like, it shows how hard it is to hold it because they lost it. So, looking at the NFC side of things, for teams to clinch. Let's look at, so obviously the Eagles, Bears, Rams, 49ers, Seahawks are all in the playoffs. Now it's the Packers as well. The Seahawks, big opportunity for them. They clinch the NFC West and the NFC's 1 seed. And the lone first round bye and home field advantage. They need to win. They need to beat Carolina. They would need the Rams to lose on Monday night to Atlanta. And they would need the Bears and the 49ers to tie, which I doubt is happening. But they would need one of them to lose. I think preferably you'd like it if Chicago won against San Francisco. I think I might be wrong on that. I don't know if it matters. I mean, it might. I'm not sure, but I would imagine because you'd want the division, right? Like, you would rather win and then have the Rams and the 49ers lose, and then you division that way. But I don't know. It's tough because I think if you're Seattle, you'd also be like, you want to pull for Chicago, but then you can just ice the 49ers and end it all in the last week of the season. It would feel more satisfying, but also, I mean, you want to lock things up, so it does make logical sense. The Panthers, they can clinch the NFC South, of course, if they win and the Bucks lose, or even if they tie and the Bucks lose. They win and the Bucks tie, like, right? Basically, that's how that's going to work. The Bears, they can clinch the NFC North Division, which they actually have because the Packers lost, so they're all set there. Packers already clinched a playoff berth due to the Lions' loss on Christmas, so big for there. And then looking at the playoff picture, just at this current juncture, let's take a little bit of a peek. Of course, the Broncos and the Seahawks hold the 1 seed still. A little bit of a change. We did see the Chargers fall all the way to the 7 with their loss to the Texans. They sit in 11-5, and then presumably, if the Bills get their win, then this will stay like this. And of course, if Pittsburgh can defeat the Cleveland Browns, they'll hold the 4 seed, and all the AFC playoff teams will be locked up before 18. Again, I do not consider this game against the Browns a guarantee at all. Every single second I talk about it makes me more nervous. So that's the reality there, is that I am still very concerned about what's going to happen there. Meanwhile, we see NFC side, the Bears would host Green Bay, Philadelphia would host the Rams, and the 49ers would presumably travel to Carolina, or that could be Tampa Bay, depending on where the season go. What happens this upcoming week. Let me check one important thing before I do it. I need to know, because there are a couple things. Number one, Cleveland Browns. They're going to be out David Njoku. It looks like Kendrick Green on the offensive line's out. They're going to be fully healthy on the back end besides Miles Harden. It's going to be, I think the DK Metcalf suspension is really going to potentially have an impact on this game, because the downfield passing game is going to be a lot of running the football. And listen, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I got to tell you, I think if he loses this game, it is the biggest sting on his, he's already had, right now, this is their wide receiver corps. They're going to be down in DK Metcalf and down Calvin Austin, right? TJ Watt is also out on the defense. James Pierre is out. Brandon Echols is out. It's going to be tough on the back end. I wouldn't doubt it if the Steelers just straight up lose this game just based on depth. Looking at Isaac Suamalu also out as well. It's a brutal. Okay, also, by the way, Myles Garrett's going to be going up against Dylan Cook. He's not even going up against Broderick Jones or even Calvin Anderson or other alternate tackle. People are going to be like, Myles Garrett's wrecking. Dude, it's Dylan Cook. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's probably going to have a sack or two against a backup left tackle. Freaking relax. Right? The receiving core is Adam Thielen, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, and Ben Skoranek. It's going to be all tight ends. I think it's got to be utilizing the tight ends, Darnell, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, get them on the field, have them be pass catchers as well as blockers, and just try to control the pace of the game. Because I'm looking at, listen, Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell need to be the guys. I thought Caleb Johnson might be that beginning of the year. Kenneth Gainwell has actually been what I thought Caleb Johnson could be and more. I mean, listen, Kenneth's never really dominated in his career. I'm not going to sit here and be like, he's been insane, but he's done way better than I could have ever anticipated that he would have done coming into the year. He's just been, listen, in Philadelphia, he never had this many carries. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry, his best of his career. In receiving, he's caught 62 passes. He never had a season where he had more than 33. He got 72 targets, 410 yards. Listen, he hasn't been I'm not saying he's a superstar back, but to be the utility back he's been this season for Pittsburgh, it allows Jaylen Warren to stay fresh as well. It's working. But again, coming into this game, I'm nervous. I can almost feel my chest clamping up because I do. Pittsburgh hasn't won in there, I think, since 2021. Been a hot minute. And they're usually low-scoring defensive games. I think the key to this game is Aaron Rodgers, quick release, get out to the tight ends on quick checkdowns, let Darnell Washington just... Because here's the thing that's also interesting about Pittsburgh that I've noticed is when Darnell Washington gets a catch and gets a big chunk play, I'm like, oh, the momentum just changed. When you tell, he's not a superstar, but he's a momentum change. Because of how big he is when he bullies guys over, when he runs guys over. It's kind of similar to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's is more stiff arm, get out of my way, kind of a more iconic thing you think of. Because of how big Darnell is, it's just very hard to get on the ground. It always feels oh man, there's a momentum shift almost at any given point. I'm interested to see how Pittsburgh's going to game plan because the offensive line is not looking too hot. The offensive line's not looking too hot. TJ Watt's out again, still recovering. It's just... we'll see what they end up looking like. I've got so much, I can feel it. I can feel, the butterflies, the tension grappling me now, and it's not okay. The last thing I'll kind of discuss, I might even end a little bit, I won't go for the full hour just because it's tough to talk about every single game because I'm looking at some of these games Yeah, Saints Titans, big game for like Saints Titans. Oh, there is one game that is kind of to me at least. Giants Raiders is a very fun one to discuss because that is the toilet bowl. To basically see where the Mendoza draft schedule ends up lining up. Where does Adrian Mendoza? Where does Mendoza end up going? Did I say Adrian Mendoza? Not his name. Fernando, not Adrian. Fernando. Oh my gosh, I'm tripping, bro. Fernando Mendoza. Because you know why? It's because I remember a kid that went to my school. That's the reason why. That's not him. No, it's not him. Oh, it is. Why they have a different picture? So Fernando Mendoza essentially is the top quarterback in the draft. That's the understanding there. There's also Dante Moore, quarterback, but it feels like Fernando's going to be the number one overall pick. Like if I go mock drafts right now, going into a mock draft, it's more than likely. Oh, they don't even have. Oh, this is the up. No, what? This isn't even a mock draft. Don't lie to me. Lie to me, boy. This is first round picks. Okay, the idea. I really think the Jets. The idea is that basically whoever wins this game is going to control the number one pick, right? If the Giants win, then it'll be the Raiders most likely. If the Raiders win, then the Giants basically are guaranteed to have the number one pick in the majority of scenarios. Like it feels like the Giants are in control of the pick. At this current juncture, I think the more interesting team to have the number one pick is the Giants because there's a very strong chance they trade it. I know there's some weird ones saying that take Mendoza and trade Dart. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's really weird, and I don't think a lot of your players are going to buy into that kind of mentality. I think it's a little bizarre. It just doesn't make sense. Like, why would I want to trade away my quarterback who actually has showed progression, right? Like, and again, you don't know what people would value Dart at, right? Like, if anybody values Dart significantly, it's probably the Giants. I don't know if any other teams are saying I would give up multiple first rounders for Dart because you've seen Dart on the field, right? Where he looks good, but are you really going to give up that much draft capital to where you can just get more draft capital from a team who really wants Mendoza? I think you're going to get more value out of a guy who, believe it or not, hasn't played the NFL than has. Because it's the potential. You're buying in, teams would buy in the potential of Mendoza. And the Jets don't have to trade up far right now. They're only at the 4. And if you're New York, you could be, in theory, really stingy because the Jets are just so desperate for a quarterback. Cleveland's also, but the other thing is, like, you have to leapfrog both Vegas and Cleveland. You can't guarantee Cleveland doesn't take a quarterback even though they have Shedeur. There's no guarantee that they don't. Because again, Shedor's like still, you can say he's super talented, but he is also a 5th round pick. Like there's a certain scenario there. So the odds are Raiders and Giants, one of them's gonna lose. And if you're being honest, you're basically, if you're the Jets, you're rooting for the Giants to win. That's it. If you're a Jets fan, you're pulling for Big Blue all the way. And honestly, you're probably pulling, obviously, for Cleveland against Pittsburgh. But listen, Jets could, by the end of the day, based on my opinion, based on what I know about the Steelers, could very easily be the number 2 pick in the draft. And it may not even matter. Like, they might just lose to New England, and they may not even have to trade up over the Raiders or the Browns, because those teams both might win. But for the Jets, I mean, they might have the ideal positioning of, Raiders and Browns win. We have the 2 seed. Or not the 2 seed, number 2 overall pick. And now we're in a position where, okay, we just get our quarterback no matter what. Unless, now, and here's the weird thing, the only situation where that doesn't work is if someone trades with the Giants, right? And I think that's almost where it's really tricky, because now are you going to, because this has happened before. Back in 2017, 49ers traded with the Bears because the Bears didn't want the 49ers trading with anyone else, and the 49ers basically flew. Now, the trade is whatever at this point. Out. But this is where things get interesting, right? Is that now it really doesn't matter But now the thing is, the Jets are in so much more control because, right, like, they have so much more draft capital, reason to spend, and ability to spend more than these other teams. However, you don't know what the Giants are being offered by other teams. So it is possible New York straight up fleeces the Jets. Just a little bit, not by much. And it won't matter if Mendoza works out and is franchise quarterback. That's what the thing. It doesn't matter. So if you're the Jets, in theory, it doesn't matter how many spots you trade up. You just need to get there, get your guy, and then if your guy works, then you don't care. You don't care if you had to give up a few first-rounders if your guy is a franchise quarterback and he clearly works. Not to mention, right now, you're slated with the 18th pick because of the Colts. You're slated to have that pick. I want to say, actually, I don't see past the second. But that's where it becomes almost sort of like a game of chess. Like, well, not really a game of chess, but like, what exactly is the methodology for any of this? This is so... And then, of course, if you're the Jets, you obviously want to lose to both the Patriots and the Bills. Best shot. The only thing I could think that maybe you could see happening is somehow the Giants win in the last week of the regular season against Dallas, which could happen, which is very possible, and then you would just be in control of the number 1 overall pick, and I believe, and it doesn't matter at all. But this final little draft segment is so interesting, because, again, I could see the Raiders in Cleveland, you just have to be ahead of them, and they have very real chances to win this week. Now, if the Giants win, then you're screwed. Because I think Mendoza gets drafted by the Raiders, bar none if that happens. You basically need to be rooting for the Raiders this weekend because if the Giants find a way to beat, and I think they're more talented too, they could very much do it. If the Giants beat the Raiders, if you're the New York Jets, you're a little annoyed. Like, you're very annoyed because all of a sudden now the Raiders have so much more control over, well, guess what? You ain't winning, you ain't taking away our number 1 pick. We're getting the Hoosier. Like, we're getting the Indiana kid. Sorry, settle for the Oregon kid if he's available, right? That's where what I'm seeing. Unless something wild happens in the combine draft interview, unless something happens in the combine or something else, I really highly doubt that Mendoza doesn't go. The need of these 3 teams for quarterback and everything we've seen from him. Unless the college football playoffs go absurdly awry, which I don't think is going to have a big impact on his overall draft stock. I think he's going to run to the... And we'll see where it goes from there. But I will say I am so fascinated by the entirety of that. And I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what, keep your eye on the Giants next year. They have like the second toughest schedule. They have one of the tougher schedules this year, obviously. I know there are a couple teams that have schedules, but they've played really well in the majority of their games. Their 2 wins are actually against records. And I like, listen, if Malik Neighbors is healthy, along with Cam Skadoo next year, they make the right picks in the draft and make savvy free agent moves, it could work. The one thing, actually, I take that back. The most important thing is they get the right coach. They get the right offense coach. And if I'm going to be honest, this might be a hot take. Why not go for someone like Mike McCarthy? Like, I'm always higher on Mike McCarthy than a lot of other people, but hear me out. If you're a bad team that needs to reestablish who you are or reestablish just being competent, Mike McCarthy's the guy. Like, Dallas was winning football games. Dallas was winning football games, was winning the NFC East on certain occasions, right? You need to forget winning a Super Bowl. That's the problem. A lot of these teams are like, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. And you can think that way. The problem is when you think that way is you're going to take a lot of big swings. And you're going to take a lot of swings on things that aren't necessarily fastballs right down the middle. You're not going to be able to clobber it out of the park every time, right? And each situation is very delicate. So I think what you need to do is you need to get a guy who can kind of control a little bit of that chaos and let him go. Because I think what Mike McCarthy was doing with the Dallas Cowboys was impressive. Like, he wasn't even in complete control there, and he was still getting this team NFC East titles, getting them into the playoffs. That may have been overperforming based on what we know about Dallas now. So, if you're a team like, say, the Raiders, that, like, people are like, well, what about Pete Carroll? That's what Pete Carroll's supposed to do. But really, you gotta remember, Pete Carroll was good in Seattle because he was just coming out of USC at college. So he knew who was going to be good. He knew about Bobby Wagner, knew about Richard, knew about Cam Chancellor, knew about these guys that were going to be good he could get in the later rounds. Whereas, say a player like, where's Mike McCarthy? Like, Mike McCarthy is just consistent with who he has. And we saw Pete Carroll before. He was, I want to say, Eagles head coach. No? That didn't work there either. Or no, it was not Eagles. It was Jets. Jets. My bad. Probably Jets or whatever. It was a green team. Remember, it was green. Didn't work there. And now with the Raiders, it's not going to work here either. Because he doesn't know the young guys coming out of college. And frankly, he's older. Tougher to resonate with these guys than this. Quarterback declined significantly more than we thought. So, the reality is, with some teams that just need to get an establishment of a little bit of just knowing how to be competent, not making absurd, crazy mistakes like this, Mike McCarthy's not the worst guy in the world. He's going to make some mistakes, but they're not going to be the point where they're like, egregious, this is terrible, what are we doing? Right? It's going to look like a competent football team that when they do make a blunder, like, you need to get out of the territory where egregious blunder is like normal. Like, if a good coach makes like a egregious blunder, it's like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? That was egregious. Where if you're a team like the Jets that's like, makes one of those similar egregious blunders and be like, Jets are going to jet, you need to get away from that culture. And you need a guy who is competent enough to where when he makes that mistake, it is an egregious. Whereas if you make that mistake normally, it's like, that's just par for the course. That's the mentality that bad teams need to get away from. That's why I think Mike McCarthy could work for a few. All right. Whew, that was a lot of talking. Oh my gosh. It is 12:27. I'm going to wrap up a couple minutes early. But it was good to get back in the chair. I should be back Monday. I will Monday after work. So I hope you guys enjoy week 17. I hope you guys continue to enjoy the holidays, your Christmases, your Hanukkahs, your Kwanzas, all of those great and lovely holidays. I actually got to learn more about Hanukkah. I have all the details. I am not a celebrator of those holidays. But regardless, this has been the Primetime Pregame show for Week 17. It's about T-minus 32 minutes till kickoff. I'm going to go make myself some hot pretzels. I'm going to go probably crack open a nice cold beer, watch some of the games. I'm going to wait for the rest of my relatives to get here because I know we got some New Year's stuff planned, so I'm very excited for that. Y'all enjoy the rest of the weekend. Hope you guys enjoy New Year's. If I don't see you New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, if I don't see you before then, ho ho ho. Ho ho ho! I'll see you next time on Primetime with